Dana White's Contender Series 2024 week number 9. This is the weigh-in recap show, full card predictions, and the betting breakdown. I'm looking forward to talking about each of the matchups on this card after seeing the fighters on the scales. So make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Turn the post notifications on and make sure you share the video as well. And also note, I will be live for this entire card Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Don't miss the fight companion. And let's jump into the first fight on the card. We have Sean Gauci versus Anthony Drilich. I like the side of Gauci to get the win in this fight. If you look back, he fought Steve Erceg some years ago and beat him. Has not lost since that point, but he ended up taking a really long layoff from, I believe, 2019 all the way to 2022 or 23. Let me double check just to get it. But the reason he was off, for those that don't know, is he had an issue with his stomach, ulcerative colitis, to the point where he was getting like flare-ups in his hip and his lower back, and he was unable to properly train until he got a surgery. Now, since coming back, he's 3-0, and it's 2022 that he came back, so he was off for a long time, but has come back and hit his stride and still looks to be a really good talent. And at only 28, the layoff kind of couldn't have come at a better time, because he's probably a little too early. If he would have just kept winning and then rushed into the UFC, maybe this layoff was the best thing for him, coming back a bit more mature. Now, Drilich is actually pretty nice with it too. I like his skill set. He's actually pretty clean with his boxing. I like the way that he moves his hands from the southpaw stance. He's actually got pretty surprisingly good power for a guy fighting at 125 pounds. I'd say he's a relatively smooth boxer with good punch combinations. Now, the side of Gauci is interesting because he also has good boxing too. He's clean with his hands, and he also brings in quality wrestling. Now, Drilich also has solid pressure wrestling, but I think Gauci is the better pressure fighter, and I think he's a tad bit more technical, and I think he's gonna have slightly better skills. I think it's competitive in a lot of areas, but Gauci, little better with the wrestling, little more well-versed. Drilich probably a little quicker with the hands, but I'm not seeing him face planting Gauci with a big punch. I think Gauci's going to pressure him, walk him down. Drilich will land some shots. Gauci will fire back. And we're going to have a competitive 3 rounds between these two. I'm anticipating a really fun flyweight fight between two of the best flyweights in Australia right now. They both are fighting in like the top leagues there, right? Eternal MMA and Hex Fight Series. Those are the big 1 and 2, and we're going to find out who's got the goods, because they're both the best talent from each other's organizations. They were actually, I believe, scheduled to fight earlier in 2023, but the event ended up getting canceled, and now we see it on the Contender Series. A lot of good talent coming out of Australia right now, and these two are absolute savages. I honestly feel like they both should probably be on the UFC roster, but unfortunately, unless Dana White's in like the perfect of moods, we're probably only getting one. I'm going to say it's Gauci getting it done. Now, as far as the scales, we got to check the fighters out on the scales. You can see a little early access to the main event face-off. We got Drilich, who actually needed them to bring the box out. Seemed like he had, a more difficult weight cut than Gauci did. Gauci looks ready to rock and roll. And then there's the face-off between the two. You can see a little bit of the size edge for Sean. And I also think a little muscularity edge. I believe he's like the naturally better athlete, right? A little more physically powerful. I do think that Drilich can definitely box nicely. And I like his quickness, his speed. Like, he's got nice hands. It's enjoyable to watch, but Gauci's competent on the feet, and I'd say he's good with boxing as well. And then with his, I think, a tad bit better grappling skill and the striking to match that, at the very least, is equivalent, but maybe Gauci will have a bit more weapons. I'm going to favor Gauci to win at 29-28 or even 30-27 in a relatively close fight. Damn, the flyweight division, though, in Australia is crazy. You had Aaron Tao, who looked good. I believe that was bantamweight, actually. But 135, 125, the smaller guys from that side of the world, savages. Minus 180, Gauci. Plus 150, Drilich. Let's see what the opening odds were. minus 155. I completely agree with the lines. Gauci should be a slight favorite, and I think he's a bit better. The odds reflect a fight that I'm seeing unfold. I think it's, relatively close lines. It's not minus 600, especially for this card. These are like essentially pick 'em odds, man. Over 1.5 at minus 260. I love over 1.5. I think it's going long. I think we're going into the later stages. These guys are both good. And then I'm going to say Gauci decision, which is plus 125. So we're going with the side of Sean Gauci to win the first fight on the card. I think he gets it done by a hard-fought 3-round decision over a really quality prospect that's probably in the next season maybe or on short notice. Also going to be getting a UFC contract. Gauci for the W. Let's keep running. Next fight on the card, we have Islem Dulatov versus Vinilto Antunes. I think Dulatov is going to end Antunes. I really like Dulatov. He's a pretty savage striker, and he goes by the Ripper nickname. It's very fitting. Has a very brash style. Even the way he fights is brash. He comes out confident, throwing really big shots, fast starter. What's interesting is Tapology has him listed at 6'6". He's not. He's 6'3". I typed in the centimeters. He was like 6'3.25", something like that. He's not 6'6". They overhyped it. And also, you can see him in a picture with Nurmagomedov. With Magomedov. They're standing next to one another, and they're about the same height. So Dulatov ain't 6'6". That'd be crazy if he was a 6'6" welterweight. Does definitely have the height advantage here against Antunes. What will I say positive about Antunes? I mean, there's a lot to say about it. It's a good Muay Thai striking style that he brings to the table, and it's very power-based. He's got good forward pressure. He has a shitload of pro fights. The dude is definitely a dangerous fighter, and I feel like he could even be considered near UFC level. I just think Dulatov has potential to thrive, where I think Antunes, he's a tough Brazilian fighter with power, tough Brazilian Muay Thai, and I think that Dulatov is cleaner with kickboxing. He's better from long range. Granted, he does like to pressure. He's also nasty in the clinch with knees. And actually, look up Antunes getting knocked out. This KO loss, I believe this is the one. No, it's actually before this one. It was against the Russian. You can look on his Tapology and see it. He got violently KO'd in this fight here against Romanov with a knee. It was vicious. Now, granted, that's not me saying he's a bum or anything like that. The dude's good. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He's the LFA welterweight champ, and he was not supposed to beat Geraldo Nito. He was a big dog. I mean, odds-wise, I don't know what the lines were, but Tapology had 99% of the people on Nito, and Antunes knocked him out. So the dude definitely has power, and he's being overlooked again here against Dulatov, but I actually think Dulatov's a special talent. What's interesting, Dulatov has a really big German YouTube channel. Him and his brothers have a channel where they do vlogs, and they got almost 100,000 subscribers, so shout out to them. It's pretty cool, and I like Dulatov's style, though. The striking is dangerous. He also has fought in pro boxing, and he's a winner there. He's 95% of the people's pick. Interesting, though. He's getting some love by the sub. I think the submission could be live. The long arms give him a chance to lock up a ghillie. Antunes getting rocked and then panic shooting and getting caught in a submission, for me, seems to be a more likely method than Dulatov engaging in just pressure wrestling. I actually believe Dulatov's going to be very confident in his striking skill set in this fight and not rely on just grappling. Now, you can look at Dulatov's victories in the past, 5 wins, 5 knockouts. The dude's an absolute finisher. And he only lost his pro debut, so 10-fight win streak for him here. And I think he's a pretty special talent. And I don't know, the way he comes out with that damn mask on, dude's a savage. And he's somebody to watch for sure. I'm picking Dulatov. I'm going to say he KOs Antunes, but it wouldn't blow my mind if he subs him either. So inside distance, if you're looking to prop it up for a safer call, maybe that's the call. We'll look at the odds soon. Dulatov is absolutely shredded and jacked. And when I looked through his Instagram, when he was listed at 6'6", before I looked up his official height, I was like, this dude is way too jacked to be 6'6" at 170. Like, if not, I don't know what's going on. He doesn't have any weight in his bones. But no, he's not 6'6". Antunes looks like a damn crazy guy, but he's in great shape too. Respect to Antunes. He looks funny as hell in that picture, bro. He's got the little smile on. He looks like a Brazilian school teacher that can kick some ass, bro. The sleeper physique for sure. And then there's the face-off between the two. I think Dulatov's a dangerous dude with a special ability. I think Antunes is a fun watch and a good brawler, but he's going to get starched. Starched or subbed, but I'm leaning towards the side of starched. Now, let's see what the odds have. Minus 650, minus 550. Dulatov, I feel like he's a lock on this card, and damn, the bookies are thinking the same. Plus 475 for Antunes. He's a pretty huge underdog. And then you look... Under 2.5, minus 300. Yes, we're going under for sure in this fight. I think we're going under 100%. And then looking at Dulatov inside distance, you get minus 285. Dulatov KO is plus 170 with sub at plus 125. That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, if it was like plus 300 for one of those methods, I'd say, oh, it's a pretty cool DGen bet, but it's really not one here. Picking him by KO, but he definitely could lock up the sub. The smart side is inside distance. You just don't get value at minus 285. But I do think we're going to see Dulatov get a finish inside of the 3 rounds. And I think he's going to look violent. And I honestly think that he has potential to be popular in the UFC. That's the vibe I get for him. He's already got a following on social media. And now the fighting style to match it, and I'm assuming people will start to get behind him. So Dulatov to get it done. I think he's getting a violent win, and he's taking out the tough LFA champ Antunes, who I just think isn't good enough for this guy right here. He probably could have beat some other Contender Series foes, but Dulatov might be a special one. I'm going with Islem, Dulatov, the Ripper, to get a violent win. Let's get to the next fight. We have heavyweights going after it. Mario Pinto versus Lucas Camacho. I sat on this one for a bit because it seems obvious, but there are factors. So I am going to pick Pinto, who's a really chalky favorite. But I want to say some good things about Lucas Camacho, which if you're on Pinto as your lock in a damn parlay, might make you sweat a little bit. Camacho is not technically skilled, so pull that away. He's not really a guy where I watch and say, damn, okay, he's got the slickness to be a problem at heavyweight. He isn't. He kind of looks clunky with his kickboxing. He's kind of awkward at times. Now, what he does have that fighters don't sometimes is that dog in him. The dude has a good chin. He's got a lot of heart. I think he has a decent gas tank for heavyweight too. He is definitely willing to scrap, and he can outwork opponents and get finishes. If you look, this fight 2 fights ago, okay, against Guillermo, he was losing the fight, got dropped in the first round, gets a late first round finish because his opponent broke, and he didn't, and he kept swinging. He sits in there and keeps swinging, which I love those type of fighters that can take some bombs and are just not going to quit on you. They don't doubt themselves at all. Then add in, he trains at Nova União, good-ass team. It's just his skill set isn't that impressive. Like when you actually sit and watch him fight, it doesn't really look good. Whereas with Pinto, I'm thinking the complete opposite. I'm like, yo, is this the next Cyril Gane? This dude's incredibly slick with his striking. He's really athletic too, which is like, I don't know, unexpected for the most part, seeing a guy 6'5". He moves really well, good footwork, good jab, good low kicks, calm, very relaxed striking, picks his shots well, not going to force a finish. And I think that the reason Camacho has been successful in some of these LFA fights is because he's taking on guys who are trying to force finishes, whereas Pinto is going to pick him apart. And I think because of Pinto's technical abilities, he's actually more likely to then find the knockout on Camacho by not rushing it, just letting the shot come to him. So yes, I am picking Pinto. I am picking knockout, but Camacho's a dog and I respect it. We'll talk about the face-off in a second because it was actually a dope face-off. We got Camacho. He looks funny as hell, man. Camacho's a goofy looking dude in this, the front double bicep flex. He looks like, I don't know. To be honest, I thought he was Mexican, especially with the Camacho last name. I'm thinking Macho Camacho. He looks Mexican as hell, but he's actually Brazilian. The Brazilian Mexican, Lucas Camacho, is no longer at the burrito stand, my brother. He's getting into the cage. He's doing big things at Nova União. Then we got Pinto. He looks pretty calm, cool, and collected. Hopefully he's not an absolute bust because the skills you see from him, you know, they're reminiscent of somebody that could be good. And then there's the face-off between the two. And they stared at each other for the rest of the day. Like, they pulled them apart. They brought everybody else up. These two are still stonewalling each other, eye to eye, staring into each other's souls. They didn't want to break. I do think Camacho looked away first, but that's because one of his cornermen came and said, all right, come on, let's go. Let's go. So I like the intensity. I think it's a violent fight. Camacho's definitely got the dog in him. Pinto's definitely got technical skills. But note, Pinto was hurt a couple of fights ago against this big steroided up guy. Like, this dude was running all kinds of steroids and came at him crazy. And he still fucked him up and got a finish. And that dude was more of a grappler. But he was caught by a big knee on the inside and ended up going down. He recovered, though, so he does seem to have durability. And I'm going to pick Pinto to be calculated and let the knockout happen. And I'll predict that he finds it in the second or third round. Now, as far as the betting odds, they're horrible. And Camacho is very tough. Camacho's got a lot of balls. So I respect the nutsack. Plus 425 for Camacho. Pinto minus 600. We find ourselves in a bit of a weird spot because there's no value and he's been hurt before. Over 1.5 is minus 175. I can't sit and be confident that an over 1.5 hits between these two. So I'm not interested. And then looking at inside distance for Pinto, it's minus 140. Obviously, knockout is most likely plus 105. If you have Pinto locked in some parlays, maybe a D-gen bet is then throwing Camacho inside distance. If somehow Pinto gasses and Camacho ground and pounds him, locks up a neck or hits him with a huge shot. It's just, I think Pinto's really cool, calm, collected. He has a very rare gift. Like, it's only certain fighters that at a young age of 26 are looking that calm in fights. He's a lot calmer than Camacho, who's 31, and Pinto has more pro experience and he's younger. I'm gonna go with Pinto to get it done. I think the knockout comes to him. It's a counter shot KO. I think Pinto is simply better, though Camacho is definitely tough, and sometimes being tough is all you need. If Pinto's gas tank turns out to be fraudulent, he's going to take an L. But he did go 5 rounds in his last fight, and he picked apart this Arras guy, who I think was also on steroids. I'm not even going to lie to you. He didn't look jacked, but I'm seeing the delts are like this. And, picked him apart. That dude was a pressure grappling style, little stocky fella. I think he can get a knockout of Camacho. But don't be shocked if these heavyweights go long. It's just I wouldn't bet on a heavyweight fight between dudes this big, especially on Contender Series, going distance. Pinto going to be the pick, but, relatively concerning simply because the odds are way too wide for this fight, and Camacho's tough. Next fight on the card is our co-main event. We got Cody Steele versus Chasen Blair. I am picking Cody Steele to get it done. He was actually supposed to fight on Contender Series. I believe it was week 5, and it was against Quamel Latoni. He was supposed to fight him, and that was actually the last guy who had beaten Pereira in MMA prior to Adesanya. And dude pulls out. He's like, I don't want to do MMA anymore. And it's the night of the fight. So respect to Cody Steele jumping back in like a month, making weight again, came in looking good on the scale. Could the weight cuts in a short period of time be a worry? Here's why they're not. Because his opponent just had a weight cut. His opponent just fought 2 weeks ago. So I'm not too worried about, a weight cutting issue causing for a lesser performance for either one of these guys. I think both are very talented prospects. Though Chasen Blair fights in Cage Warriors, initially I think you're just going to auto assume that he's from Scotland or the UK or somewhere in Europe. No, he's actually from America. He's actually an American wrestler. Though he does like to strike, Chasen Blair, his comfortability will be in timing some takedowns, and he actually has pretty clean jiu-jitsu. His striking's not bad, though. He has pretty light, bouncy striking style, relatively quick hands, and I'd say he's a very good natural athlete. You can see the college wrestling background on him, but he's winning a lot of these fights using his grappling. You can look at his methods of victory. He does have 4 KOs, but like when you look at the way he's finishing fights by sub in the past 2, you can see that the dude is very competent on the ground. He had Hassan Zada's back before he got knee barred. Obviously, Hassan Zada just recently got signed to the UFC. And even though he's in the UFC now, I still feel like that's a bad-looking loss by submission when you're taking on Cody Steele, who is simply a phenomenal grappler. I actually think Cody Steele's a good striker, too. He's pretty decent with his kickboxing. He's got fast hands, and he likes to close the distance and throw hard. Now, I do think he's a bit hittable, but I don't think Chasen Blair is precise enough and as good of a boxer as, a certain level that would really touch up Steele on the feet. I think as far as the striking goes, it's relatively competitive. I would say Blair has better movement, but better offensive strikes will be favoring Cody Steele, which makes it interesting because could Chasen Blair catch him with something crazy? Maybe, but I think relatively unlikely, though possible. The thing is, Cody Steele has phenomenal jiu-jitsu. Cody Steele is a legit submission grappler. I mean, look, you can see here, grappling. Like, the dude is a competitive grappler. Always doing grappling competitions. Did lose to RoboCop in grappling, but he's taken on some really high-quality opposition, and he's been a pro grappler for a very long time, and the grappling skills are 1,000% legit. Though Chasen Blair has good jiu-jitsu and good MMA jiu-jitsu, it seems, for this certain fight here, I'm eliminating a Chasen Blair significant wrestling threat, so take that out. He now is going to look to kickbox here. I don't think it's super likely he knocks Cody Steele out. I think Cody Steele can box with him. I think Blair's probably better with kicks, though, on the outside, but not substantially better. And I'm going to pick Cody Steele to find his way into a grappling sequence that finds the kill. So Cody Steele win by submission. I am going to predict he gets that UFC contract as he gets his second chance here, even though he didn't fight the first time. Chasen Blair looking in great shape, shredded, ready to go. 2 weeks notice, no problem. Less than 2 weeks, really. And then Cody Steele looking in great shape as well. He's ready to rock and roll. Then we got the face-off between the two. Yeah, Cody Steele should win it. A little larger. I think he's going to be a bit stronger, even though Chasen Blair is that wrestling base. Cody Steele's got fucking nasty jits. And I like his hands too, but I respect the pro level of grappling too much to overlook that here. Chasen Blair is also in Cage Warriors. And being a good grappler in Cage Warriors, to be a hater, and I'm going to say it straight, it doesn't mean a lot, because a lot of dudes there are not good grapplers. And there's a lot of fraud checks from Cage Warriors. Now, if you're a good striker there, sure. I believe the hype for the most part. We're going with Cody Steele. As far as the betting lines for this fight, currently, Cody Steele is a chalky favorite, around minus 230 to win. Chasen Blair at plus 190 as the underdog. I'm going to be picking Cody Steele to take it home. I do think he finds the chin, and I think he's, finds the chin. I think he finds maybe the neck. That's what I meant to say. Gets under the chin. Possible. I'm going submission. Over 1.5 minus 200. Probably over 1.5, maybe. But I don't love an over 1.5 here. There's other over-unders I'm interested in. This one, no. Steele at plus 250. It's a likely method of victory. I think Cody Steele is going to lock up a sub against Chasen Blair. And I see him taking a big W home. And I feel as though he's going to be earning a UFC contract at the end of this, and I think he's a pretty quality talent. So Cody Steele to get the win. I got him beating Chasen Blair, and let's see. We'll find out. I think he's coming back better. Let's keep running. Let's jump to our main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe it up. We got Artem Vakhitov versus Islem Masraf. This is a crazy, crazy fight because Artem Vakhitov in kickboxing was the last guy to beat Alex Pereira, and he's very novice at MMA. I'm picking Islem Masraf, which is probably going to blow a lot of people's minds, but let me tell you why. From what I saw of Islem is he's actually a really competent striker. He's got nice kickboxing skills. Got a big knockout in PFL, which got him signed to Dominance MMAs with Ali Abdelaziz, and they're not signing cans. Islem Masraf has legit potential. He's a good striker, though he's not to the level of Artem Vakhitov winning kickboxing titles in glory. He's still a quality MMA striker. But on top of that, Islem does have a submission win. He is competent in the grappling, and I've seen him sparring with Nazaruddin Imavov. He's now at the factory over there, and I just think that they're smart enough to know Vakhitov seems to be a novice on the ground. So if you haven't seen any of Vakhitov's recent MMA fights, let me just kind of describe them to you. So this one here, he was on his way to winning, it seemed, but he ended up getting a serious elbow injury and the fight got called off, and he had the mount at the time. If he would have just started throwing hammers, who knows, man, he could have ended up getting a TKO. But regardless, lost his debut to a nobody, and then he beat this guy, Salakov, who I don't think trained. Like, I'm not even trying to be an asshole. I don't think this dude trained MMA. Either that or the fight was a fix, because as Vakhitov is passing to mount, there is no using of the legs to even attempt a block of the pass. It was very strange. It was like he just allowed him to mount him and just drop punches on him. Very weird fight. Very weird fight. And then this fight here, he fucking lands what? 2 leg kicks and the fight's over? The guy quits? I don't know. These fights are suspect. Like, I'm not saying they were fixed for sure, but these dudes just gave up. It was horrible. And even in this fight, like he was getting pressure wrestled a bit in this fight, and he ends up getting injured. A single leg was being attempted, and he looked awkward defending it. Vakhitov, I know it's a year and 3 months ago, but he didn't look like he had any natural wrestling ability. And that's a major concern. Islam Masraf, though he's known for MMA striking, he's not an idiot. He knows that Artem Vakhitov is elite with stand-up, and I'm sure they have a game plan to use MMA to win this fight. Also note, Masraf seems to be a pretty strong dude. He's pretty muscular. I feel like he's going to have a physical strength advantage over Vakhitov. We'll look at the scales now, and we'll check them out, which is a crazy fight. And going Masraf blew my mind because I was initially like, bro, Vakhitov, they're giving him a can. He's going to run through him. And then I'm watching, I'm like, oh, Masraf is that PFL guy. I remember him, and I'm digging into all his fights. I watched some of the amateur. I watched some of the other fights. I'm like, this dude's all right. He can fight for sure. And I think that he's smart. I think he's going to win. He beat a guy from the damn French MMA factory. And, that dude that he beat was like this Russian wrestler. And he stopped every takedown. And then that's the guy he gillied. And then he ended up, sparring with some of those guys. He's on their good side. There's Vakhitov, who, looks okay. Vakhitov isn't really in great physical condition. And I'm going to tell you something. Some of these guys who are phenomenal at striking, they don't always figure out the grappling. Just because you beat Alex Pereira in kickboxing doesn't mean you're going to follow his path and do the same in MMA. It's a completely different sport, and not every one of these phenomenal strikers responds well to grappling training. Now, in July, I saw Vakhitov training at Killcliff FC, but I also saw him training at some no-name gym doing grappling. And that's worrisome, because if he's not taking the grappling extremely serious, he's in very big trouble. And Islam Masraf, does this guy look like a guy coming to lose the fight? That's not the vibe that I got from him. You can see the face off. You can see what I'm saying. It's not like Masraf is a bodybuilder, but he's got quality MMA muscle. He's got some big arms. He's got a thick back. I think he can body Vakhitov on the ground, and I think he's live to submit Vakhitov as well. I'm going Islam Masraf. I really think I got to favor MMA over kickboxing in this fight. Though Vakhitov has looked dope, I just don't believe he's going to get it done. I'm not confident that he will. Is it a guarantee? He doesn't know. But Masraf has higher level MMA skills, better MMA wins. Real quick before we jump to the odds, okay, Masraf's beating a 3-1 guy, a 4-3 guy, okay, debuting guy here, but a promising prospect. Am I sure that Asmat isn't taking Vakhitov down and grinding a win out a year and 4 months ago? And then some amateur wins too? I know it's less fight experience because Vakhitov has been doing kickboxing forever, but it is a completely different sport. And if Masraf fights smart in this matchup and he mixes in some grappling, I think it could be a substantial factor. I'm going for the underdog Masraf. Plus 375, upwards of plus 425 at open. Vakhitov was minus 700. Wow. I think Masraf might shock everybody. It's not that I'm not impressed with Vakhitov, but I'm not impressed. The dudes he fought in MMA, Masraf would absolutely body. Easy. He wouldn't have snapped his elbow against that first guy either. Not to be a dick and say, oh, you got injured, but I don't know. An injury is still a loss regardless. As far as the over plus 200, wow, that's interesting. I feel like it probably ends earlier, but it's weird that it's plus 200 for an over. I would have thought it'd be kind of close. And then if you got Masraf by submission, it's plus 1,100. By KO, plus 600. Why wouldn't he look to grapple? I'm sure Masraf is going to have an advantage in wrestling. I'm sure he's going to be better at grappling. And just because Vakhitov is godlike in the stand-up doesn't mean he's not in trouble when they touch the ground. Can I give you an example? Do you guys remember Austin Springer versus Giga Chikadze many years ago? Giga Chikadze was an extremely high-level kickboxer who had transitioned to MMA, and he ends up getting submitted on this very show. I know Yusri lost, right? But Yusri's not the same. Vakhitov has the aura of somebody making a run now. And I think that Islam Masraf actually has a legit chance to upset him. And I think he could be being overlooked. The fact that he's also with Dominance MMA, like Ali Abdelaziz is not signing bums, guys. We got to read the little signs. Islam Masraf for a big upset. I'm calling it. I'm going to say submission. Knockout is possible, but I'm going with the main event underdog to beat the kickboxing badass and Artem Vakhitov. Super exciting fight. Let's see. Vakhitov's got to prove it to me. I ain't ready to pick him yet against an MMA fighter that seems pretty good. Pretty decent at the very least, but I think actually pretty good. And I like the southpaw stance too for Masraf. I didn't even mention. He got a nice high kick knockout. I mean, the dude's good. Masraf is nice. Masraf's a guy to get excited about. Vakhitov is too. Let's find out who's better. I'm going to pick Masraf to win. Those are the predictions for this week's Contender Series card. I want to touch on some parlays to play. So I was thinking about this. Dulatov, I really believe is a lock. If he lost, I would be relatively shocked. I think Gauci wins in a hard fight, so I do think the over 1.5 is live in that fight. Maybe you're going over 1.5 there with Dulatov there, or maybe you're going over 1.5 in the first fight with a Dulatov under 2.5. That's a possibility. Are you parlaying up Masraf like an absolute degenerate savage? Maybe. Don't highly recommend it. Now you get into risky tier. I like the first two more. Pinto should win, but he's minus 600. There's not a lot of upside to propping him up, to parlaying him up. Maybe if you're propping it up and you're betting him to win by a KO, even though Camacho's shown durability, I still think he's flawed. The KO could be live. And then Kody Steele, I do think wins. So I think you could go for an over 1.5 in this fight. I think you go with Dulatov straight, Kody Steele straight, or potentially you go over in this fight, under in this fight, and then with Kody Steele. And if you don't like the side of Steele, you keep him out. The first two are still money. Pinto could be added in as a parlay piece. If you're looking for that third leg and you're like, yo, the guy looks pretty good. Could get fraud checks, so then I would recommend, if you are looking to hedge, the plus money of the knockout for Camacho is really not a bad idea, just to save your ass in case shit goes sideways, and it's not going to cost you much. But ultimately, confident pick Dulatov. I think the Gauci over 1.5. I think Pinto should win. I love the underdog pick in this damn main event with Masraf. And then I think that Kody Steele should probably sub up a Chasen Blair. But parlay at your own risk. Please do your own research, man. Dig into it. If you're actually betting on these fights with any serious amount. If you're just throwing a couple bucks on DGen parlays, different conversation. But if you're really looking to throw down, do your own due diligence. Study the fights. See where our opinions line up. And see if they differ on any too. Do it. Do it. Do it. I got to recommend it, man. I got to keep you guys in the right spot. I got to keep it real. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's breakdown for the Contender Series. I know I did. I'm having a great time. Much love to all of you. Thank you all for 38,000 subscribers. We hit that during the live stream during Saturday's UFC 307 card. So I'm feeling super blessed that we're on this road to 40K and constant content every single day. Keep it locked in on the channel. There is a hurricane coming my way, but that's not going to stop me. I'm going to be bringing the fire. Trust. Thank you guys for watching. Smash the likes on your way out, and W's in the comments if you got nothing to say, but definitely let me know some of your favorite picks on the card. And for the new folks, subscribe it up with those post notifications turned on. You don't want to miss anything. Thanks, guys. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.